Hello, everyone, and welcome to Choices, Finding Your Joy. Paula Vail here. I'm so happy today to share with you a gentleman who is changing lives around the world. He's making such a difference. We are going to discuss suicide prevention today. I have with me today Mathew D, and he is the founder of the International Suicide Prevention Organization. And it's just fascinating what he is doing for others. So, Mathew, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hello, Paula. Thank you for having me on today. It's a real pleasure and privilege to be on your show.
I'm so honored. And this is a topic, oh my gosh, Mathew, that affects millions of lives, millions. So I would love you to share with us your foundation, what it is you do, and even give us some perspective about suicide that we may not realize.
Well, first of all, I want to make sure that the viewers understand that we need to totally rethink the way we think about suicide and depression and anxiety and PTSD and phobias and coping mechanisms, because they are old beliefs based on a system that had no solution. And now we're dealing with things that are actually curing the suicidal ideation within minutes, because this is not being taught in schools, colleges, or universities. None of that. This is what we're going to talk about today on your show is very advanced neuropsychology, quantum physics, dealing with the abstract concept of the human mind, which has baffled humans since recorded history. What we've discovered is that there's a code that alters hierarchy of memories, and memories are stored in packets of 15 minutes or less. So when you have depression and anxiety, it's the result of an experience. You're not born depressed. You're not born with anxiety. Those are learned behaviors. They're actually a coping mechanism as a result of an experience that's happened outside the scope of your usual life experience. Now, the reason why we have these traumatic events that happen to us is so that we become aware of our survival instinct, the basic needs of a human being, which are sex, food, and danger. We need to be aware of those things in order to maneuver through this reality and survive. So that's our whole point. We want to survive. There is a expiration date on humans. It's like 120 or something like that. But in the meantime, we need to avoid lions, and we need to seek out food that tastes good and gives us nourishment, and we need to find a mate so we can propagate the species. That's our primary purpose. But when we have an experience happen, which usually for those that become suicidal, for the most part, that's not everybody, for the most part, an experience that happens between the age of 5 and 23. That's when we become aware of who we are. Our emotions are hypersensitive, and we have experiences that are relative to us. And traumas, like I was telling you before, that a trauma can be a harsh word or a extreme rape. They are equal in the mind, the abstract reality of our mind. The actual memory is just as intense for a person who was yelled at to a person who was raped. Those memories are identical according to the mind frame. So in order for us to understand that, we can easily go and pick that memory out, and we can treat the memory. There are segments of the mind now that we know about, which are the subconscious, the critical mind, the consciousness, where we're at right now. Then there's the unconsciousness, which is where survival instinct is. And then there's the psychosis mind. That's where you don't want to go, because that's where you've crossed the threshold of a traumatic experience that's beyond your scope of reality. So you go into a psychotic mind frame. But there is hope for people who do that too. So we get these memories, and they get stored in 15 minutes or less. So if you've been molested or raped, majority of those who I've talked to over the last decade on Suicide Prevention Hotline, they were either molested or raped at a young age. And I'm not talking about just women, even men. And it's even harder for men to have this experience than women because it's not talked about. Mm-hmm. And so when people call me, first of all, my primary objective is to find the inception point, which this is different from normal therapy. Normal therapy you go to and they want you to discover the inception point on your own through self-exploration. Now I'm looking for it. I want to get to the point right away. I try to get to it immediately. I want to find out what it was that caused you to start having these symptoms of depression, anxiety, PTSD, coping mechanisms, phobias. I want to get to the point right away. Yeah. When I get to the point, I say, okay, this is what caused the problem. I can treat you for this right now. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and we can treat you for this memory that happened to you when you were 5 and you're 80 now. We can treat you. It doesn't matter how bad it was. We can treat you over the phone. I can do this over the phone. I can do this. There's this procedure is online. It's been online for 2 years on International Suicide Prevention, their website. It's supportisp.org. It's been on there for 2 years. It's treating a couple hundred people a day. So it works. It works every single time. The code for the mind is identical for every human being. So we take that 15-minute segment, that traumatic event, and we lower the hierarchy. We're moving it from the unconscious mind so that it's no longer a threat to us. Because it's seen as a lion. It's seen as a bad piece of food that's been left out for days and now it's poisonous. It's seen as a bad relationship. That's what a memory trauma is. It's seen as something as a threat to the body as a whole. Yeah. So the unconscious mind will attack it any way possible, creating cancer, creating phobias, coping mechanisms, extreme sports where people are like, why are they so hell-bent on trying to kill themselves? It's like, well, it's an extreme sport. No, it's not. You had something happen to you a long time ago, and now you are trying to avoid that. And the only way to do that is by doing something extreme, like cutting or doing drugs or something that you're doing trying to avoid what it is, the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. And it has to be equal to that. So the more extreme the behavior, the more extreme the experience was from your past. In the past, though, we haven't been able to treat these things. We haven't been able to help you other than drugs and long-term treatments that are just a maintenance program that's maintaining you. Once you go off the maintenance, you're back to where you were in the first place or worse. So now we take these 3 treatments that I developed. One is for triggers, so that if you have a suppressed memory, but it keeps getting triggered by a color, a taste, a smell, a sound, a feeling, I can treat the trigger. There's another one that's for a memory trauma. Something has happened to you, a singular trauma. You were, something happened between 5, I keep bringing up rape, but that's pretty common actually for adolescents to create major problems in their lives later on. And then there's the PTSD. PTSD is a series of more than 3 traumatic events that have happened to them. And when that happens, then you create a manic behavior where one minute you're happy, next second you're crying, next second you're angry, because you're triggering all these different traumatic events through your environment that you're in right now. Mm-hmm. Now, when we have to, there's another treatment for that, but I have to actually physically see the person on the either in person or through the internet to do that, to treat them. The good news is I'm training other people to do the procedures so that this can spread.
Excellent.
This can get bigger, so that people can. There's a gentleman in England who travels to U.S. to China, and he's treating people in all 3 continents now, which is very exciting to me. And then I have another counselor in Connecticut, or maybe Virginia, but she's back there and she's treating her patients that have been coming to her for years, and now they're actually getting help. They're actually getting better. They're not having reoccurrence of these symptoms they were having prior, which are the reason you go to therapy, is to actually get help. And in the past, we haven't been able to do that, so people avoid it. Their symptoms get worse, and they end up killing themselves. And we got 3,000 people a day globally killing themselves.
Oh.
That needs to stop, because that is a permanent solution to a temporary problem. The temporary problem can be fixed now.
Yes.
We have 60 million people a year reporting depression. Those are people reporting it, not the ones who actually experience that are not reporting it, which probably is double that.
Yes.
So you have probably half the world population that's got either anxiety, depression, coping mechanisms, or something going on with them that they don't feel they can trust going to a conventional therapist or psychiatrist to get help, because they're not seeing other people say, hey, I don't have those problems anymore. If they did, then everybody would be rushing to the psychiatrists and the counselors to get help.
Yes.
They would, because they say, I have this depression every time my daughter comes home. Okay, well, it's not about your daughter coming home. There's something being triggered there.
Mm-hmm.
Some past experience. What was it? When did that start? Okay, there's a 15-minute experience there we can treat. So you're not getting depressed every time your daughter comes home, or every time your son calls you, or every time you talk to your parents. You don't feel this awful, yicky way. So that's what this is about. And the actual system is called New Recall, NU-RAK or REKALL. That's being trademarked this month. It's actually already being published in the U.S. trademark publication. So the actual trademark is going to be awarded in another 2 months. And that system is what I'm building to train counselors and psychiatrists and to propagate world mental health. And it's very exciting when I think about it that we're actually going to be curing depression, anxiety, PTSD, these symptoms of mental disorders that used to baffle us.
Oh, it's so exciting, Matthew. And I would think when you treat someone, you help them release that hidden emotion or trauma. Oh my gosh, that's going to bring more joy in their lives, more happiness. Oh my gosh, I can only imagine.
It's actually not what you'd think. What happens is when you remove a trauma, because I know what trauma is. I've had trauma. Because I actually do all the procedures on myself. I've done them on myself. I know what the results are. So what happens is, first of all, you have quiet. Your mind is quiet, which is very unusual, because most people, it's chattering away because your mind's like, what's going on here? There's something weird. I'm not acting the way I normally do. There's something going on, because the way your mind works is that you are constantly scanning your surroundings because you're looking for food, sex, and danger. That's what you're looking for. And when you're doing that, you're scanning, you're looking back into your past, and you're looking for comparisons, examples, how to react, how to respond, what your prediction is for the future. I mean, all these things are going on, but what happens is when you got this elephant right back behind your truck in the rear view mirror that you don't want there, because it's not a lion, it's not you're standing on the edge of a building ready to fall off, it's not bad food, it's not a bad woman or guy that you don't want to be around. It's something that's foreign, and you're aware of it all the time. It's there, and it's bugging you. It's causing you to get depressed because now you're avoiding anything that causes you to see this. Colors, smells, tastes, restaurants, ice cream, anything that reminds you of that experience, you're going to avoid, which causes depression and anxiety. So new recall is literal. It takes that truck, pushes it way back out of sight, and then it stays there. It doesn't come racing back up in a few weeks because the medication wore off, or the therapy, you talked about it, but it's still back there. It's not there anymore. So that's why we called the actual system new recall. And now when you're looking back, you don't have this, hey, I used to have a fear going into an ice cream parlor. Now it's gone. I can go in and have ice cream now. Happiness is a choice. Once you remove these experiences that are causing you depression, anxiety, or manic behavior, once you remove those experiences, then you can have a choice to say, okay, I choose to have a happy, joyous life now. I choose to look at things in a different way. I choose to focus on what makes me happy. And you develop, basically, when you have an experience that happens that's bad, you stop developing at that point. You stop developing mentally. You start digressing at that point, and that's why you develop depression, anxiety, and PTSD. And then you go back to that point when you get treated. You go back to that point of your mental state, and things that you say, oh, I used to want to be an astronaut. I used to want to be president, or whatever you wanted to be. All of a sudden, those things start coming back, and you start saying, hey, I can go do those things now because I don't have to be afraid of this or that, which is very empowering. So I tell people, once I treat them, go back to that moment before that. What was it that brought you joy? Seek that out. If it's going to school, seek that out. If it's arts and crafts, seek that out. If it's to have a real relationship with somebody that you care deeply about and love, seek that out now. It's not going to be something you're going to fear anymore.
And I would think this is, can affect and help so many people in so many different situations, from people prone to drugs to people considering suicide, people that just can't seem to get out of a depression.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm just one guy, though, but I did discover the code that created these procedures. And that code is vital in order to keep this going, because that code is absolute. The code works on every single person. Just, I'm putting that out there because I've been doing this for a decade. I operate a 24-hour day, 7-day a week suicide prevention hotline. It's been going for 11 years. I've answered every single call. So those calls I get from around the world. And I don't know the resources that are available to these people. I don't know in Africa, who do you got there? I don't know. Who do you got in England? I don't know. Who do you got in Australia? I don't know. And how about Chile? I don't know. As long as you can speak English to me, I can treat you. Now I'm wanting to train people from all different cultures, all different walks of life, all globally. I wanted to train people so that they can start doing this work where they live, so they can help those who are in their communities.
Yes.
There are advances I'm working on, like an app for mobile devices that's self-help. Like I was telling you in another show, that when Robin Williams killed himself, I really took it to heart, because I'd been working on this self-help procedure, and I was working to put it in the medical journals, and I kind of was dragging my feet. And when he killed himself, it really bothered me. So I immediately put it online and released it so that everyone could have access to it. And that's on supportisp.org. That's International Suicide Prevention's website, so that people can avoid stigma and they can get the help they need
Yes.
by themselves. It's a 5-minute procedure. They go on, it's free. International Suicide Prevention website's free help. They can go online and do the procedure. It's very simple. Children do it. It's not something you have to have a degree in or anything. It's very simple. Just follow the actual steps and do what it says to do. If there's a problem, there's my phone number is right there, and you can talk to me live. So it's not like I'm hiding out or anything. But we got this has been on for 2 years now. So now I'm working on a app that can go on mobile devices that people can have on their phone. Literally the procedure works on something that happened 50 years ago or something that happened 5 minutes ago.
Gosh.
So literally, if you go into a meeting and you get traumatized by, oh my God, they berated me in such a way, I'm mortified, you can do the procedure immediately, and it will take that memory and put it immediately into the subconscious. Immediately.
Matthew, would we have to know what memory is causing us to have trauma, or does it just...
Yes, you have to know,
Yeah.
you have to look back in your past and say, when did this symptom start?
Mm-hmm.
When did the depression start? When did the anxiety start? And then you say, okay, I thought I forgave that person. I went to church and I forgave that person, but I'm still thinking about the experience. It's not about that. It's about the experience. If it's a 15-minute or less, it has to be 15 minutes or less. Even if you were tied up and held captive for a week, there's only 15-minute traumatic experiences that took place over that week.
Wow.
So if there's multiple traumas, they're over 3, then you have to do a different procedure. But for the most part, if you can identify each individual traumatic event,
Mm-hmm.
you can treat that. It's got to be 15 minutes or less, because that's how we store our memories. Because we're only working on a single event, which is 15 minutes or less, and we take that moment and we single it out and we do the procedure on it. But you have to write down the intensity level of the experience beforehand.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you won't know the actual procedure worked. Because you will have no memory of that experience ever having an impact on you before. So it's very strange, because it actually causes an amnesic effect on you, which most people want anyways, because they don't want to remember that thing. They don't want to keep coming back up. But it's only for that experience. It's not going to cause you to forget, how to eat or how to walk or anything like that. I mean,
I personally see my life's experiences as, things happen. I go through different experiences in life, and they go in my mind's library. That's how I look at it. They're in that library, and when I want to think about something or a special trip with a loved one, I just kind of go into my mind's library.
Yeah, the mind is not in the brain. I know it's hard for you to understand this, but your brain is just an access point. Your frontal lobe is where the access points are to your past, which is looking back. So it pulls out the past, and then you put it on a viewing screen, the screen, to see what happened. Now, if you got a big traumatic event, you're going to constantly be having this thing in your face, and you're going to say, "Oh, I don't want that anymore." But your bad memories are attached to these are your negative emotions, and these are your positive emotions. So they do get split into 2 different categories. Your memories, there's the pleasure and pain ones. So you want to get rid of the things that are causing you pain and limiting your life experience. That's the whole point of this. But we have that power now to choose to change our behavior. I'm giving that to you.
Matthew. It's so exciting. My gosh. And I'm afraid we only have about 3 minutes left in the show. What last words do you want to share with us?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me this platform to get this information shared, because I've been doing it for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And I have extensive training in this self-training in this procedure that I developed, and now it's working. Over the past 10 years, there's results-based evidence that it's 100% proven. and it's endorsed by other mental health professionals and doctors. So now I'm looking at funding to get this, to propagate it, to train, and to help the multitude.
Excellent.
So that's where I'm at this point, and we need to get this going in a positive direction to help those who are suffering silently.
This is so huge and so exciting, and not just for the people that are suffering, for the people that know people, that have loved ones and people they know that are suffering.
Yes.
They can tell them about this and change lives. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting, Matthew.
Well, I want to really emphasize that there is no trauma too big or too small. So if you're in this impression that, oh my God, it really wasn't that big of a deal, but if you're thinking about it, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
And if it was huge, it works for that.
Yeah.
If you think this is so big, there's no way you could possibly help me, I've helped them. Trust me, I've had people fly here to Las Vegas from around the world. I treat them in 5 minutes for something that's bothered them their whole life.
Oh my gosh. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yep. It's mostly just, it's detective work for me, is to actually get them to say, okay, I know what I'm talking about. I can help you.
Yeah. What
trust.
What would you do in the fact that it's a memory that they don't want to think about? They don't want to bring it up. They don't want to, what do you do in that circumstance?
Well, if they're here to see me, I don't force anybody to do anything. They usually test me with smaller traumas, and then they say, oh, well, there was this one thing, I got raped. I go, yeah, that was kind of a big thing, so we'll work on that now. Because they test me with the little ones to see if it actually works. And they, then it works, and they go, okay, let's go over here to this, because they spent their whole life hiding this thing because there was actually no way to fix it before. They went to therapy. They got the medication. None of it helped. It just, all it did. So they said, suck it up, bury it, put it in the ground, hide it,
That's what we do.
No marker, but there's still a marker because you get triggered by something that's so insignificant. It can be a hair, a thread, whatever. But that is treatable now. That is 100% treatable. That is easily fixed. Easily. It's not difficult, and it's something that we can do. So this show is about hope.
Yes. Yes. That is tremendous hope, Matthew. Oh my gosh. I hope everyone just takes the time to think about this, and anyone themselves or anyone they know of that, could use this. I'm really excited to put this out there. I'm so grateful that you're doing what you're doing. And because suicide is big. I mean, there's a lot more than we realize.
It's big. It's huge. It's the unspoken, silence. It's a majority of people too. It's not like, it's just something we don't talk about. It's culturally unacceptable to talk about depression, anxiety, or self-harm. Yeah. And we know this intuitively too. Yeah. We intuitively know because we watch what happens to other people. Yes. They get ostracized from the community because they're crazy, because they're thinking about suicide now. So those are temporary symptoms. That's what we need to really be understanding. And it's part of the human condition. Yes.
Matthew, I'm just so excited. Thank you so much for sharing this great information.
Thank you.
With us. And to everyone out there, love, hugs, and blessings. Thank you so much. Bye.